Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here as we get set for race number 7 of the debut season of the NCAA TaxSlayer Truck Series. Getting closer and closer to All-Star Race Weekend, which is basically where we consider the break in the middle of the regular season, and then it sets us up the second half of the regular season. We call that the chase towards the chase for the championship. So drivers still with an opportunity here in the first half of the regular season to continue to try and get good finishes, try and get those wins, because obviously, as we've stated before, there's only 8 spots available for these drivers in the chase for the championship, and I am fully expecting we're going to have more than 8 different race winners this season. So far, coming into tonight's race, we've got 7 different race winners. So if you think about it, theoretically, 7/8 of our field for the playoffs is basically filled up. That, of course, all depends, though, on whether drivers are still in the top 30 in the point standings by the season end, and what other new winners we could have during the course of this season. Tonight is a track that is very much like some tracks we've been to before, where fuel strategy is coming to play. I fully expect that tonight we could end up having the same thing happen, and these drivers, as well as over on the Hershey's Cup Series side, they have been exposed to so many fuel strategy races so far this season, and we could very well see one take place here at Kansas in the Toyota Tundra 250. Lining up on the pole position is Ryan Brommer. Now, as said, we've had 7 different race winners so far this season. Ryan Brommer in the 8 could become the 8th different winner. He also has had a very strong season. Comes into this race second in the point standings, 25 points back from current points leader A Garcia. So good starting track position here tonight and running well in the points. Would he be a guy that'd be willing to risk it, try and stay out a few extra laps if this thing goes green all the way to the end, and try and pick up the win on fuel strategy? Alongside of him, Tony Green won the season opener at Daytona. This is a guy who could maybe pick up his second win of the season. That would put him more in the conversation of getting one of those championship spots. I believe that at least half of the field, if not maybe 3/4 of the field for the playoffs this season, will have to be gotten by drivers that have multiple wins this season. It just seems like that's going to be the scenario, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Seth Cole's going to line up on the inside of row number 2, and I'm just trying to put myself in mind. That is Julius Anderson rolling off there in 4th. Let's go and get the command.
Drivers, start your engines!
You will notice that the 42 of Nick Johnson, who, and I don't have to say this lightly, he pretty much did dominate the race last week at Talladega Superspeedway, rolling off from that 6th position. And he's been on a good roll. That win that he had last week moved him up to 9th in the point stand, so he's running well in points coming to this race as well. 27 laps of racing, so we'll have 3 stages, of course, 9, 9, and 9 for the laps. Completions of laps 9, 18, and 27. It's time to give you your top 10 in points coming into tonight's race, presented by Golden Corral. Ace Garcia is still the points leader, despite having a pretty poor performance last week at Talladega. Ryan Brommer is 25 points back in second. We've got a tie for third between Ricky Cervantes and Carter Friesen, and then 5th in points is Joshua Hyatt. Rest of your top 10 the points: Joshua Ciculli, Seth Cole, Joseph Srigley, Nick Johnson, and Patrick Smith. 3 of those drivers that we just mentioned are coming into this race starting in the top 6. 4 of them, well actually no, 5 of them, 6 of them inside the top 10. If you add Smith, Cervantes, and Hyatt behind Johnson, Cole, and Brommer. Here we go. Pace truck peels off. The Toyota Tundra 250 at Kansas. Green flag is out. Let's roll. Telling sign right there. The inside line is going to be the line preferred tonight, as Brommer, Cole, and Stuart Gratton all moved to the top 3 positions. Tony Green having difficulty finding grip on the top side. Now he gets stuck up way up on the top side 3 wide as the battle be on for the lead. Here comes the 31 of Gratton to the bottom of Ryan Brommer, who will lead the first lap. Gratton by a splitter will lead lap number 1. There you see down there on the bottom of the racetrack, it was Ace Garcia. Looked like it was Michael Whitman using the apron on the front straightaway. It is legal here at this racetrack. One thing that these drivers have to be aware of, though, is when they come back up into traffic, there might be somebody there, and we are under caution for the first time tonight already. So on lap number 2, the yellow flag waves for the first time this evening. Stuart Gratton certainly wouldn't have wanted to see that, as he was starting to increase his lead, but he'll lead us under our first caution. Charles Jackson, Seth Cole, Ryan Brommer, and Patrick Smith Smith being the top 5. So there goes the whole idea of this race maybe going green to the end and potential pit strategy and fuel strategy come into play. It still could, but not nearly to a degree that it might have if we had run all of these laps under the green flag. Let's take a look and see who was involved for this first yellow, and Eli Bright in the 7 collected up in this one. Eli was running pretty well at the beginning of the season, dropped last week to 16th in points, and not going to have a good points performance tonight. And it looked like that was the 73 of Joshua Ciculli, former winner this season on pit road, and he's retired. Also on pit road, that was Jordan Lopes, and right behind him, the 17 of Dylan Theroux getting involved in whatever this first yellow flag was. So, without further ado, Stuart Gratton out in front. Let's take a look at a replay of our first caution of the evening here at Kansas. And we had another driver involved, too, that I didn't realize, last week's winner, Nick Johnson. Remember what I said about those drivers down there on the apron? They have to be careful about merging back up here going into 1. Well, if you look on the right side of your screen, that red truck, that is Zach Rogers. The blue truck behind him, Jessica Miles. And you got some trouble already back there. That was Dylan Theroux getting into Gabe Williams. We'll look at that in a minute. That actually was what brought the yellow out. This happened further up after the yellow had already been displayed, and there you see it. Oh, I think that was Carter Friesen coming back up the racetrack in front of Shane Lake. Lake hit the brakes. Everybody else hits the brakes, and there was just a checkup. And, boy, nice save there by Srigley in the 90. But there you see Bright, Nick Johnson, Joshua Ciculli back there in the 73, as well as Easton Barber and Jordan Lopes getting involved there. And I think somebody else gets involved up here. Yeah, that's the 24 of Jake Moss. There goes the 99 of Ryan Madden. 88 of Jonathan Zoerlein, former winner from Vegas. He just barely squeaks through, but he might have gotten some damage. And also a A Yepez in the 00 getting a piece of this too. And oh, I think he might get a hit right there from Eli Bright, and that's what started the 7 car smoking. Some pretty extensive damage to the left front of the Haas Automation Chevy Silverado. Ryan Madden got some pretty good rear end damage on his Toyota Tundra as well. Don't know how much damage the front end of the 24 of Jake Moss sustained. And there you see the 13 of Gabe Williams. Now, he got hooked further back. Before this incident we showed you here in turn 1, he got hooked by Dylan Theroux. Let's see if we can find out how this happens. So there's the 01 of Darren Davidson up the track. Does he come into play here, or is it the 73? Oh! There it is. Yep, Davidson came down into Theroux. Theroux down into Gabe Williams. Wow, Davidson went up into the wall as well, so he got a piece of that. Alex Gray got some damage on the front of his machine. And look at Mason Wood getting through that. Oh, there's some contact up there as well between Madden and Yepez. We know they both got swept up in the incident further up, so we had at least maybe 10 to 12 trucks involved in 2 different incidents that took place just entering into turn 1 and over into the middle of turns 1 and 2. So that put us under the yellow. We'll see who continues. We'll see who won't. So we go back for the restart. We've gotten the signal 1 lap to green. Green flag will come back out on lap 7 of 27, giving us 3 laps remaining in our first stage. Nick Johnson lines up on the inside, 1 lap down. Underneath Stuart Gratton, he has continued on, but drivers that have not include Gabe Williams, Eli Bright, Joshua Ciculli, Jordan Lopes, and Dylan Theroux. So tough break for all 5 of those drivers, especially Joshua Ciculli, who had a win earlier on this season. He wants to keep himself up there in the points standings. Came into this race 6th in points, and not going to have a good points day here this evening at Kansas, as there'll be Stuart Gratton, the race leader, Charles Jackson in 2nd. 3rd is Seth Cole, with Ryan Brommer, the pole sitter, in 4th, and Patrick Smith in 6th. Then it's J Lagasee. Boy, I always forget the last name. Nick Raill in 7th. I apologize for missing that name all the time. Julius Anderson, Ace Garcia, the points leader, and Michael Whitman was your top 10. We are now back under the green flag. So what have these drivers learned? Maybe not use that apron on the front straightaway, because that seemed to be what caused a lot of the issues and a lot of the checkups that happened over in turn 1. But maybe now they're spread out. Maybe they can use it and be able to merge back up. As here's Charles Jackson to the bottom of the racetrack. It's called the Toyota Tundra 250, and obviously Charles Jackson would like to get a Toyota Tundra to victory lane in the namesake race. But also Charles Jackson coming to this race really struggling in the point standings. Out of the 42 cars this season, he is 39th in the standings and really looking to get himself a victory here. Of course, Charles Jackson drove last season full-time in the Hershey's Cup Series non-charter system, but he didn't win a race there. He actually made a race at Richmond, a Hershey's Cup Series points paying event, and took the checkered flag there. So he is a former Hershey's Cup Series winner. Now in a full-time season here in TaxSlayer Trucks, he'll be able to pick up a win. And right now, after getting around Stuart Gratton, Gratton has either not been able to reel Jackson back in, or he's pretty content to ride where he is at the moment. There's Ryan Brommer in second. Thing he doesn't want to see, though, is bright orange and about to reel him in. That's A Garcia, the points leader. Talked about how last week A Garcia had a poor performance at Talladega. Well, trying to bounce back from that and having a good run up inside the top 10 as he's trying to continue to increase his points gap again between himself and now second in the points, Ryan Brommer. About to get passed here by J Lagasee. That would be, I believe, for the 6th position, as Marcus Saatchi has just gotten around him as well. And how about M Czekala? Nice run there for the 33. He's going to try and kill two birds with one stone to the inside of Lagasee and Garcia, and he will jump from 8th to 6th on one turn. Well, a couple of turns 3 and 4. Battles on for 3rd. Seth Cole has it. Ryan Brommer wants it. Marcus Saatchi now up into the mix as well, so a 3-way fight for the 3rd position. Saatchi going to have the battle going on for 4th quicker than we have the battle for 3rd, and Saatchi will take the position. Talked about Eli Bright having a strong start to the season and has seemed to taper off last couple of weeks. Same could be said for Saatchi. Saatchi was up inside the top 10 in the points early on this season, and now finds himself outside the top 10 and 11th. So certainly looking for a good run here tonight, and now up to the 3rd spot. Charles Jackson, though, continuing to show the way, and of course the question is, these drivers did have a caution that came out back on lap 2. Nobody came to pit road, though, of the lead lap cars. A couple trucks did come to pit road to repair damage. Nick Johnson was amongst them, Ryan Madden, and a couple of others. But these leaders did not come to pit road, so the question is, with those few laps they had under yellow, were they able to save enough fuel to be able to make it the entirety of this race without having to make a green flag pit stop? We'll have to wait and see. Jackson still out in front. Gratton not letting him get away. He's maintained the gap between 2/10 to 4/10 this time by. He actually cut it down by about 5/100ths, keeping pretty much within 3/10 of Charles Jackson, so not letting him get too far away. Could be strategy on his part, could be saving a little bit of fuel, maybe getting the slipstream off the back of the 4, and if this thing comes down to green flag pit stops, he might be a lap or 2 better than the 4. But as these two are riding, Marcus Saatchi is making hay. He has really cut down the advantage between himself and the top 2. He's now about 2 seconds back. Another car that's also been moving up through the field very quickly is M Czekala. He was outside of the top 10 when we went back green. He's now up to the 4th position, so great run for him for Top Gun Motorsports. And Ryan Brommer now is behind A Garcia, so right now, not counting the stage points that these drivers will accumulate so far, A Garcia would have grown at least 1 more point advantage over Ryan Brommer. That is 1st and 2nd right there in the point standings in your screen. Talk about M Czekala. How about his teammate, Tristan Allen? Great run there for the 12. He's up in the 8th position now, and right behind him, another teammate in Zach Rogers. So 3 of the 4 Top Gun Motorsports cars are up here inside of the top 10. Czekala in 4th, Allen in 8th, and Rogers in 9th. Coming into this race, the highest of that team in the point standings is Zach Rogers, 13th in the point standings. So looks like Top Gun Motorsports has got their luck turned around, at least for the moment. J Lagasee right now running in that 10th position as we've got about 1.5 laps left in this stage. Jake Rogers currently running in the 11th spot, trying to catch up to him. I don't know if he'll be able to do it in time. There's Jessica Miles there in 12th place, and N Raill, nice run. Oh, that's N Raill. I get the 94 and the 97 confused until I'm able to see the number. That's a Julius Anderson, currently in the 13th spot. Patrick Smith in 14th, and Tony Green started outside of the front row. He has slipped back now into 15th, and a lot of company there in the form of Alex Gray, Michael Whitman, Isaac Nichols, Carter Friesen. N Raill is back here as well, and was that Zoerlein? No, it's not Zoerlein, that's Tyler Deaver. Gotta wonder, too, with this thing going in a long run, we're going to have traffic encountered. You saw right there was the 42 of Nick Johnson, last week's winner, so they've already caught him and put him now another lap down. And the top two were able to get around him pretty well, but I think that kind of wadded him up here from about third place on back. Czekala now in third. A Garcia has moved up to fourth. Battle on for fifth. Tristan Allen and Seth Cole. Looks like the car that had a lot of difficulty maybe with the 42 was his teammate, the 74 of M Saatchi, because he has dropped all the way back from third, now going to cross the line somewhere around the 9th position. Battle is on right now for the 10th spot. Jessica Miles getting by both Jake Rogers and now J Lagasee. So now she has cracked the top 10. And I think the best battle may go on here for third place unless Stuart Gratton can do something with Charles Jackson. Jackson now with more traffic. Jake Moss in the 24. A Yepez in the 00. Got by Moss, was wadded up behind Yepez. Now clears him, and Gratton will do the same, and the gap remains about maybe 2.5, 3 truck lengths down the back straightaway. But again, the question of fuel, can they make it? Next time by, it's 6 laps to go. Can they make it 6 more circuits with whatever they were able to save under our only caution, which was back between the laps of 2 and 6? It's also probably going to wad third place on backup when and if they catch, well, they will catch Yepez and Moss. As a matter of fact, they're moments away from doing so, and can make it very interesting for who's going to be finishing in the top 5 and who isn't. But still, that question of fuel, Gratton still continues to keep the distance the same between himself and Jackson. And is he coming to pit road? No, he's not. Okay, it looked like he really was slowing there through 3 and 4. This time by, it's about 4.5 tenths behind Jackson. Still keeping it between 3 to 4 tenths, but he really needs to catch a lucky break here because it almost looks like both cars are about the same. They're running at similar lap times. Gratton's just not being able to close the gap. And it looks like he's trying to now. It doesn't look like he's in ride mode because he certainly can't be at the moment because this time by, I mean, for heaven's sakes, we've got, what, 4 laps to go. See if any traffic up ahead for Jackson to have to deal with. Next cars would be Easton Barber and Joshua Hyatt all the way back here. That Krispy Kreme Chevrolet, 5th in the point standings. I didn't see him getting a wreck. So he's not having a good run. Easton Barber did get a piece of that incident on first yellow and only yellow so far. Question is, will they be caught before this race is over? They're at the start-finish line now. Jackson's just exiting turn number 4, so they may play a factor, and that could be good news for Stuart Gratton. We'll have to see. 3 laps to go here. And the gap that time closed up a little bit, but I heard Gratton have to lift quite a bit in the center of the corner. And I think he may have lost a little bit of ground through 1 and 2 to the Dollar General Toyota. Time is not on Gratton's side. He needs to do something now. He needs to do something quick if he is in any way better than Charles Jackson. 2 laps to go. Looking for that traffic up ahead with Barber and Hyatt. I'm not seeing them yet, so it may come down to the last lap when and if Jackson encounters them. Charles Jackson struggling in the points. Caution is out! Yellow flag out with 2 to go. They're racing back to the white. This is going to finish out the race. So Charles Jackson will not have to defend the race lead for 1 more lap. He will take the yellow and the white, and that iced it. I think Charles Jackson, with that, has won the Toyota Tundra 250. Oh, look at the smoke. Oh, boy, I don't know if there's still damaged trucks up ahead of him or not. Doesn't look like it. To be fair, I don't think Stuart Gratton had the truck to get up there and pass Charles Jackson. So I think Jackson would have won this race whether it finished under caution or under green. And now, if these drivers were in any way close to making it on fuel, they certainly are going to be able to make it to the checkers now. They can pretty much clutch it to the finish. So Charles Jackson, a Toyota Tundra, will win the Toyota Tundra 250 here tonight. Mentioned that Jackson's struggling in the points, but don't worry about that. He's got a 1 in the win column now, and now he just has to rely on some good finishes, maybe a second, third win down the road, but Charles Jackson will cross the line and under caution wins the Toyota Tundra 250. still early on in the season, so we'll have to see just how much of a propelling this has for him through the point stands, and I believe he swept all 3 stages as well. So that is going to be huge for him in terms of stage points and playoff points. But a big win there for Charles Jackson. 39th of 42 drivers in the field as far as the point standings go, and a big-time win for that team. Standings should be official, but first we're going to go back and see what brought out the yellow to finish this race under caution. And this was up inside the top 10. Zach Rogers in the 39 running so well. And, oh, looks like he got the wall just the least little bit. And then his momentum kit. What in the world happened to him? Did a tire go down? That car just lost all momentum. Slowed way down, and Seth Cole had no time to react. That was really strange. And there you see then they threw the yellow flag, but it's not over. Boy, both Rogers and Seth Cole were en route to top 10 finishes. I think that just gave a top 10 to Jake Rogers and J Lagasee, who both made their way by. But then watch right here. That's the 19 of Isaac Nichols. Going to get into him. And oh boy, and then that was Michael Whitman and Julius Anderson getting a piece. Smith just gets by. I don't know if anybody else hits the 19 or not. Doesn't look like it. Rogers up out of the way, so I don't think anybody hits him, and I think that was basically it. But boy, that was a hard lick there for Isaac Nichols and Zach Rogers. And both of those drivers were looking for a good run. Obviously, Zach Rogers, we mentioned, running 13th in points, and Isaac Nichols was running top 10. He was looking for his first top 10 finish of the season. And he came into this race 40th in points. It's not going to happen here tonight for him. That's a tough break for that young driver. And that is what brought out the caution and basically helped Charles Jackson to win this race. Let's take you now to your finishing results. So there you see the finishing results from this race. Jackson and Gratton won 2. Tristan Allen, Marty Czekala, a couple of the Top Gun Motorsports cars with good runs this evening in 3rd and 4th. Marcus Saatchi brings it home 5th. A Garcia continues his consistency. He had a little bump on the road last week at Talladega, but bounced back with a 6th place run here today, so he will certainly keep the points lead heading into our next race. Jessica Miles with 7th. Ryan Brommer trying not to let Ace Garcia get too far ahead. He'll finish a couple spots behind him in 8th. And then, as we said, Jake Rogers and J Lagasee almost gifted top 10 finishes with 9th and 10th after that incident that involved a couple of drivers inside the top 10 at the time in Zach Rogers and Seth Cole. Look on down through the remainder of the finishing results here, and you will notice those drivers that we saw get involved in that wreck, a lot of them not having decent finishes after that. Seth Cole finished 32nd, Zach Rogers 35th, and Isaac Nichols in 36th. And then the drivers that were involved in our first wreck finishing out of the race in 38th on down: Gabe Williams, Eli Bright, Joshua Ciculli, Jordan Lopez, and Dylan Theroux. So we have now had 7 races and 8 different race winners. So theoretically, although there are a couple of drivers that came into this race outside the top 30 in the points, and we don't know if Charles Jackson's in the top 30 in the points with this win yet or not, we could theoretically say, though, that the 8 slots in the chase for the championship have been filled by race winners, which means now it's ever so important for drivers to be able to find victory in the lane, not only for their first time this season, but maybe even for their second and third times this year. But that's going to do it here from Kansas for the TaxSlayer Truck Series. Hope you guys enjoyed tonight's race. If you did, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe, become part of the crew today. We have shown your full finish results, and these are your point standings. Heading into our next race, we are taking another off week for the TaxSlayer Truck Series. We're having this weekend finish up here at Kansas with the Pizza Hut X Series and Hershey's Cup Series. Then next week, it's only Pizza Hut and Hershey's action from the Super Speedway of FTF. The following week, though, all 3 series will be back. Not all 3. Only Trucks and Hershey's will be back, as we are going to go racing at the Monster Mile Dover International Raceway. So that'll be next up on the schedule for these TaxSlayer Truck Series drivers. Hope to see you tomorrow and the following day as we continue on our weekend here at Kansas, as you've been watching a production of the NNSCRA, offline racing at its best.